Welcome everyone, my name is Jacob. I am a hunter here in Kentucky. I hope you all are well. Thank you for joining me. Like most of you as hunters, I like to tinker with my gear, especially in the off season. It's a great opportunity to think about the things that we love to do without actually really doing them. And we have other responsibilities, but we tend to those during the off season. And so it's like, okay, with my whitetail setup, is it as light? Is it as quiet? Is it as efficient as it can be? What can I do to do that with my whitetail setup as I hunt here in Kentucky and other surrounding states? When I traveling out west, what in my setup can I do to tweak and tinker with my setup that makes it so that I can go farther and stay longer? Those are the things that we think about often. And one of the biggest pieces of our gear that we really rely on day in and day out is on our phone. And we've got all sorts of hunt mapping applications that exist on our phone and on our desktop that we use. And a few years ago, there weren't that many, but now there is an emergence of several options for all of us. And so I wanted to take a moment to really tinker around with this aspect of my gear. Is there an opportunity? Do I have something that really fits my needs, something that's versatile? So when I'm hunting here for whitetails in the east, that allows me to do the things that I want to do, whether it's wind and weather related, whether it's scouting, during preseason or off season, or whether it's when I'm covering ground during season. Does it have the tools that I want and like and need? And then if I'm planning a trip out west to hunt elk or mule deer or pronghorn or whatever it is, does my hunting map application allow me to scout effectively? Does it have multiples of layers? Does it have timber cuts and burns and other features that allow me to scout before I head out there for my 10-day hunt? And so, again, there's a lot of options out there, and some of them are more expensive than others. I'm seeing more and more fellow hunters have two apps. They have one that does this and one that does that. And again, I wanted to take a moment to reevaluate what is it that what's out there and share that with you so that it might help you see if it fits your needs. So in this video and the subsequent video, we're going to take a deep dive into some of these applications, and we'll walk through some of those right now. So the first one is OnX, which I assume a lot of you all are very familiar with. BaseMap is one that's out of Washington State, and some of you all may be familiar with. GoHunt is out of Las Vegas, Nevada. They just launched their mapping capability. HuntStand, believe that's out of South Carolina. And HuntWise, which is out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, is another platform that we'll be taking a look at. And then Spartan Forge, which is a relatively newer application. And I don't know, I believe the founder's out of North Dakota. So ultimately, going to be a good time to sort of evaluate, see what's out there. And really, what I tried to do to make this objective is I created a spreadsheet for myself and graded each of these platforms on a variety of features. And if you go to my Instagram page, you can hit my profile. It's J Coons Hunts. So J_Coons, COONS_hunts. Hit the link tree in my profile, and that's actually right here, and it'll pull up a bunch of different things that you can examine and look at, but one of which is the cheat sheet that I created to help me really try to make this an objective exercise. Now, I do want to talk about the objectives of the exercise, and so I'm going to cheat a little bit with my notes here. So the first objective was to create some clarity as to which product might better fit your needs, whether you're a pure Western hunter or whether you're a pure Eastern hunter or you're somewhere in the middle like myself. I want to highlight some tools in each of the platforms that you might not be aware of, which these are, some of these tools are good and some of them aren't so great. And I want to identify value for my own needs. And hopefully you will find value in a platform that fits your needs. Again, you may be very similar or you may be very different than me as it relates to your hunting style. If you have a lease here in the East and you hunt whitetails out of the same stand every year, then you might have a different set of needs than me. If you don't have, especially if you don't have any intentions of going west, or if you're a pure Western hunter and you have no intentions of you're not concerned about some of the moon phase or weather patterns or some of these other things that whitetail hunters sort of focus on. Some of these tools and features might not be that interesting to you. So a certain app might be a better fit for you. So what some of the limitations is that I'm not sponsored. I have accessed these platforms in the same way as any other individual. In some cases, I have paid for a full year subscription. In others, I'm using the free intro period that these platforms offer. The software on my phone it's an iPhone 13. It is up to date, and the apps were up to date. And I did run into some limitations, and I will share those. To help me get acquainted, I watched a lot of how-to videos on the platform's YouTube channels, as many as they offered, and some of them didn't offer a whole lot, which I found disappointing. So I may miss something in my evaluation, and that's on me, but it could be an actual reflection of the experience of most consumers. So I try to be thorough. But again, if you don't have a video on how to use certain aspects of your application, then that's on you because consumers are looking for ways to maximize these tools. I did not use these for a full season, only for deep diving period of time, which I actually think is really helpful because I'm really comparing them right next to each other in real time. This is a sample size of 1, not of 1,000. So this is my opinion, my perspective, and my experience for what it's worth. Inherently, each of these apps are targeting a demographic within the hunting space. The needs of the Eastern hunter is different than the Western hunter, as I mentioned, and you all know some of those differences yourself, so I won't belabor that point. But what I will say is that some of these organizations may not be even really targeting a particular demographic. So maybe they are targeting a pure whitetail hunter, or maybe they are targeting someone that is a pure Western hunter. And that's fine, and that may be why you see a shortfall with certain applications. But that being said, there is a boom of people in the East wanting to go out west or going on out west on Western hunts because of all of the available information to them on YouTube and Google and various platforms so it's really pushing that learning curve down. So if you're an application that doesn't really cater or doesn't really help a hunter like me do both, then it makes it really difficult as you see more and more whitetail hunters going out west. Otherwise, folks are again buying 2 applications, which I think is kind of silly. So there are 6 platforms as I showed. I had anticipated including apps such as like Gaia GPS or FatMap, but those apps are so geared towards hikers or skiers that it just wasn't even really fair because they didn't have some of the tools and layers and features that these hunting specific apps offer. So going forward in evaluating these platforms, I'm going to try to stick to the core mapping features and not place a great deal of value on the extras that they offer. Some of the extras might be a gear shop or a news feed or a feed of information, and I'm just not putting I'm really focusing on their core competencies. in this spreadsheet that I encourage you all to download on my Instagram account, I'm looking at price, public-private offering, tracking tools, ability to import waypoints from other platforms, 3D desktop availability, 3D handheld availability, layers that are of key note or major note, various map types, hunt zones, topo layers, water access point, trails, roads, waypoint features, and the species variety, mix of eastern and western focus, or if it's just one sort of species related waypoint, types of topo mapping available, for example, USGS topo, contours, or is it simply sort of a basic topo? I mentioned the extras component. That is not part of my evaluation, but it is included in that spreadsheet that I created. And I rated the experience for the following parameters: the level of 3D desktop and handheld detail, the download map experience and usability, the layer rating, I rated the tools, we rated waypoints, or I rated waypoints, the topo detail rating, and then the overall value. And then I do have some final thoughts and a score for each of the applications based on my the things that I'm looking for. Again, this is specific to my needs, and it's, again, a little bit subjective, so you'll have to take that for what it's worth. So for the remainder of this video, we will examine the desktop versions of the platforms, because the desktop version tends to be a little bit more robust in terms of tools. So I'll comment on my experience and I'll highlight various aspects, and I'll also share my ratings as I go through it. But again, I think if you grab the cheat sheet, it'll help you as I go through it as well, because I could read the cheat sheet directly, but I think nobody wants me to just read that for them. So in the second video, we will examine the handheld experience, and I will comment on the experience, highlighting various aspects. And what I would suggest as we go through both the desktop and the handheld experiences is that you remove the imprints that those brands have placed or positioned in your mind, even with the logos. Even if you've never even used any of them, with the logos, if you have used them, certain sponsors or celebrities that use those apps, if you think about each of those brands sort of comes trying to evoke a certain set of emotions or connections with you, so that you've positioned them, well, this product is best for this and this product is best for that. So if we think about, I have a Hoyt shirt on, Hoyt and Matthews, or PSE, each of those brands is trying to get you to position them in a certain way. Sitka, Kuiu, First Light, same deal. You have, whether you realize it or believe it or not, those brands are trying to carve out space in your brain in a certain way. So when you think of hunting in the mountains, in the extreme, you're thinking of a particular brand. It might be Kuiu, it might be Sitka, it might be First Light. When you're hunting whitetail, you're thinking of a particular brand that evokes certain emotions. I think another one for those that hunt in the saddle community, think of Tethered, Trophy Line, Latitude, or even Hawk, which I know is a cuss word for some saddle hunters. So, those brands are trying to evoke emotions and carve out a space. And the reason why I bring this up is because as I was going through these applications, I found a little bit of my own prejudices coming through, where I thought, well, that shouldn't do that, or that shouldn't rate that high in that area. And I was really surprised. And I think as we go through this, you'll be surprised too, as we look at each of these applications comparatively, because I was definitely surprised with the winner. And I think, again, you will be too. So, in closing, I want to promise you that I probably will make mistakes. And all I ask is that you give me constructive feedback, nothing derogatory. I have tried to do this in a very objective manner and thorough manner. And if you like this sort of content, subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram. And I hope to do more of these things in the future. I'm very analytical in nature, and I think that that's something that I can apply as a strength of mine to the hunting space and share things of this nature that might bring value to you. And certainly if you have ideas of things that you would like me to take a look at and compare head to head and share in a video of this fashion, let me know. I would love to do more of this, especially something if there's a trend among folks that there's something that needs to be sort of evaluated. So thank you all, and let's pivot now to the desktop evaluation of each of these 6 platforms. Before we dive into each of the mapping platforms, I wanted to take a look at Google Earth. And Google Earth is really the gold standard for satellite imagery. As you can see here, it's quite impressive. As we zoom in, you can see so much detail here at Jenny Lake in Grand Teton National Park, Wyoming. We've switched to 3D, and it's just really impressive. It's a great tool, and really the gold standard for scouting. If this is the web-based version, but if you haven't downloaded Google Earth Pro to your desktop, I would encourage you to do so. It allows you to do so much more with Google Earth. It allows you to import KML files, and those KML files allow you to really scout certain areas, and also that the desktop version allows you to save information. It's a really excellent scouting tool. Now, unfortunately, Google Earth really isn't the perfect application for hunting. It's not great in the field. It doesn't track your steps. There's no downloadable maps and those sorts of things. But again, it's a great tool. And you can see here there are some basic tools here for Google Earth web-based platform. One of the things I wanted to point out was that BaseMap, GoHunt, HuntStand, HuntWise, OnX, they all purchase their satellite imagery from some company. Well, if you click on BaseMap now, I'm just looking at BaseMap, you can see it's the same imagery that we just saw on Google Earth. And if I move over to HuntStand, it's the same thing. You see the same imagery, the same shadows, the same timeline. And so nothing wrong with that. All of these companies have to purchase it from some organization. It's really the tools that they place around it is what we're most focused on and what's most interesting to us. If I look at GoHunt, you can see it's a different time frame and a little bit different imagery. You see the shadows there. I don't love that, but if we go over to HuntWise, it's the same thing. They purchase their imagery from maybe Google or maybe some other organization. Again, it doesn't really matter, but the point is that that's what's going on when it comes to these platforms. If we look at OnX, the imagery is different time of year. It may still be purchased from Google or some other organization, but we'll dive deeper into each of these platforms. I did want to note that Spartan Forge does not have a desktop version of their platform, which is really a mark against them because we use, I can make marks in, for example, BaseMap. I can put, my stand or areas that I want to scout. I can add photos. I can do different things in here that carry over via the cloud onto my mobile version. And in our next video, we'll take a look at those mobile versions. And so I really, it's disappointing that Spartan Forge doesn't have a desktop. Obviously doesn't have any of the features that we're going to be going through on a desktop. But let's dive into BaseMap. So along the top here, you see some of the tools. Here's a waypoint tool. We want to add a marker. It's a default, or we can drop down. There's 24 different species of animals. You see deer, dove, elk, all sorts of javelina. Very balanced as it relates to their markers or their waypoints that you might some call. Here we can add photos. We can draw objects. I like this circle thing because if I have an area that is a trailhead or a parking lot that I want to create sort of a radius around. That's an area that I'm like, okay, I want to get this far away from the parking lot, so I can set this accordingly. So it's a nice tool. A lot of the mapping platforms have that type of tool. Or if you want to draw a line from one point to another to get a sense of how far it is, pretty basic tool. HuntWind is a tool that BaseMap offers that helps you understand your scent cone and where the wind is pushing your scent. And you can see in this illustration, our scent is is blowing west. So nice tool, and I can add tree stands or blinds or that sort of thing to my map. So decent set of tools here, sort of your basic set of tools, as you'll see. And then from a layer standpoint, there are these three here that you can sort of toggle in between: satellite, hybrid, and then topo. BaseMap does not have 3D on their desktop version. They only offer it on the iOS software, which is your iPhone software. And I thought that was an interesting decision because most of my e-scouting takes place on my desktop, and that's where I would use 3D the most, not on my phone when I'm in the field. And so I thought that was an interesting decision. I did email them about it. They said that that's something that they may offer, or they are working on offering in the future on the desktop, but I wanted to make note of it here. So we looked at the tools. There are tools here on the left and tools along the top. They're both really the same. They take you to the same set of tools. If we look at friends here, I can find friends. I can share information with friends. I can import, export my waypoints from other mapping platforms, which is important. And then if we look at layers, we're going to see that BaseMap offers 4 different types of layers, which I think for me personally is something that's important because if I want to use USGS or if I wanted to use a different set of topo, I'm looking for pinch points or saddles or funnels, and that's where I can use the topo layer to help me identify some of those terrain types. And so not all platforms offer a variety of topo layers, and that's unfortunately it's a little disappointing because I think that that's an excellent scouting tool whether you're in the east or the west. As we continue to look at the layers, you see private land, government, designated wilderness areas. That's important if you're hunting Wyoming because you can't hunt wilderness areas without a guide. You see roadless areas, state boundaries, a lot of layers that you would expect to see. From a water standpoint, I think this is really interesting if you are into fishing or what have you. Great set of tools there. From a road standpoint, we got roads, motor vehicle use maps, and roads, trails, very important. Points of interest, for example, if we're looking for campgrounds or boat ramps, especially those of us, whether you're hunting in the west or the east, if you're a mobile deer hunter and you're kayaking in somewhere and you're trying to find a boat ramp, this is a great layer. And then wildfires and timber cuts, the current wildfires and historic wildfires, I believe these may go back to, okay, you can see here, 2012 to 2021. So just a little over 10 years, or just about 10 years. And then you see, obviously timber cuts are important both east and west because timber cuts, wildfires, and beetle kills, which are not listed here, anything that exposes the ground to sunlight, especially in that capacity, is new growth, and that new growth attracts deer, elk, turkey, what have you. As we scroll down further, we can see state-specific layers, and we're going to pick Colorado, and you can see different walk-in access, public access, state wildlife areas, and then species-specific. You've got a lot of deer, mule, elk, moose, all sorts of species that you would hunt in Colorado. And then if we look at another eastern state, let's go with Florida. Here we've got alligator, bear, deer, turkey, wild boar, and the wildlife management areas, which are, that's really important because you can see that this is an application that you can use if you hunt in the east and you want to hunt in the west. So just BaseMap is $34.99. You get 50 states. There is no sort of free trial. You can download the app today and mess around with it. As we noted, it does have public-private layers. It does have tracking. You can import the waypoints. It does not have 3D on the desktop. So I gave the layer rating a 7 because of the variety of layers that you can download with the 4 different types of topo. So it's I think it's a solid list of layers. I think if they had more eastern whitetail specific layers, it would make this a little bit more value to someone in the east. The waypoint variety rating was a 9. It has eastern and western species and different eastern and western related aspects. The topo, the rating of the topo mapping, I gave it a 10 because it does offer that range of topo mapping. The tools that we looked at, such as drawing shapes, the HuntWind. It also has live location sharing, and on the cell phone it does have remote marking. It has global rescue. It has a BaseMap Connect, which is a feature that pairs Bluetooth, pairs with a rangefinder, a Bluetooth-enabled rangefinder. So those are some mobile applications that we'll talk more about. But I rated the tools a 6 out of 10, with 10 being the best, obviously. And the value rating I gave an 8 because, again, it's for $34.99. You get a lot of what you would want. It's sort of a base, like I said, so your base level tools and layers. And I'll reveal the final scores in the video, the second video. But BaseMap, I thought, did pretty okay for someone who has eastern and western needs. It does have some versatility. Let's take a look at GoHunt. Now, I like GoHunt because it has a very nice, clean, and easy to navigate platform. Here we're looking at 2D mode. We're going to get into 3D, and you can see it has very solid 3D imagery. And then we'll zoom in just a little bit more here, and then sort of zoom out. So it's very easy to toggle between 2D and 3D. Obviously, we didn't, as you look at some of the other apps, they all try to make that very easy. And you can change the metrics as it relates to your location. The imagery, we can go to hybrid, which is where you get your topo overlay on your satellite imagery, or we can go to topo. What I did sort of ding GoHunt on is the fact that they only have one type of topo mapping, and I prefer to have several different types of topo. So I did ding them for that, because as you saw with BaseMap, you can have a variety of options. Going up to the top here, we can drop a waypoint, and then we can add a photo. We can add additional information, and we can, let's see here, I think we can actually change this to, there we go, to other game, your arrow, bedding, bike, black bear. There's a lot of different options here. Here we have turkey, wallow, wolf. I mean, what you don't see are you don't see like a scrape, for example, which is something that you would see in an eastern whitetail application. So it does have some things, but it doesn't have. It's not geared necessarily for the eastern hunter, in my opinion. And that does count against this mapping application. Here, if we go to the library, you can see different states. We'll look at, again, Florida here. You have private government. You see the hunt zones, roads and trails, land usage, where you have timber cuts, you have wildfires. So a lot of good, a lot of good applications here if you're hunting in an eastern state. If we go back to Wyoming, we can see hunt areas, and it has pretty much every type of game you can imagine. One of the things that I did give GoHunt some credit for is really, as you can see here, the motor vehicle use maps, and you can see if a road is closed, if it's a dirt bike or an ATV or a full-size vehicle. And I think that that's really important as you are planning a trip out west. Is you don't know what areas are going to be, if you go somewhere and it does have ATV trails and they're open, and it might be a disaster, and it might have to force you to reshuffle. But if you know some of that stuff going ahead of time, it can really help you. And I think that that's a really nice feature that you see here in the GoHunt application. Again, you see overlays, active fires, and drought intensity. And then you see the shape features here, and those are nice tools. You have a library, you have a hunt folder where if you're going to create your hunts and organize them in such a way. The terrain analysis tool is a really nice tool. I think it's something that sets GoHunt apart, quite honestly. And let me see if I can turn some of this stuff off. I'm going to zoom back in to Jenny Lake and the Grand Tetons, and we're going to, I have it set up here. You can see some of the shading. So I'm looking for an area that has a north-facing slope, a north-facing area that has a slope of 15 to 25 degrees, and it's somewhere between 5,600 feet and 10,400 feet. And as I zoom out, we can see there's one of those areas here. Or if I wanted to, let's elevate this a little bit. You can see, if I'm hunting mule deer or goat or sheep or elk, and I'm looking for a particular type of slope and face and elevation, I can quickly use this terrain analysis tool to find those pockets, and I can make note of those areas because they offer something. Or if it's in late season and I want to look for areas that get a lot of sunlight, I can flip that and it can reveal to me south-facing areas with those other parameters. So that is a tool that sets GoHunt apart from every other platform. And I think that there is some applicability in the East, but again, they are out of Las Vegas. They have other interest in the Western states. And when they rolled this out as for 50 states, I thought, I'll check it out. But it really seems to be designed for that Western hunter. If I bought this, I would think I would still need another app for my needs here in the East. So again, it's $50. It does have tracking and an ability to import waypoints. I do like the 3D and the level of tilt that you can get out of this. So the level of tilt I gave a 9. 3D level of detail I also gave a 9. The layer rating I gave a 5 because it just it's very limited in terms of layers. I thought I like the motor vehicle use map, but it wasn't enough to really give it anything higher than that. In the from a waypoint standpoint, I gave it a 7 because it has very little Eastern game related waypoints. It's more Western centric. From the topo layer rating, I gave it a 6 because it just has really one level of topo, the basic. The tools of note, it does have a rangefinder tool on the app, the handheld app. It does have folders and it has a tracking tool, but I gave that the tool rating a 5 out of 10. Again, 10 being the best. Just wasn't real impressed with the tools. The train analysis tool obviously is really great, but I don't know if it's so unique in the sense that I don't know how much advantage it gives me. The from a value standpoint, at $50 for 50 states, for somebody that wants something that's versatile, I gave it a 5 out of 10. And I'll reveal the final scores later, but I like this application. I know it just launched. I'm sure they have more in store for it, and I look forward to seeing those new tools and layers to come. And I think GoHunt has a phenomenal, offers some phenomenal tools, and they have a gear shop and some insider tools for scouting purposes, but that's not included in any of this. There's no other extras. So again, gave it a value of a 5. Let's move on to HuntStand and take a look at HuntStand. So HuntStand wants you to create a hunt area, and a hunt area. You can have multiple hunt areas, but those are and that's my hunt area right here is Jenny Lake. There are some things that I find a little overwhelming with the HuntStand app. You can see all of these filters and attributes, and I guess it helps me find what I'm looking for very quickly. If I use this filter, you can see there's all sorts of these are all different types of markers and waypoints, whether it relates to turkey or deer. You see ground blind, feeders, climbing stand. I mean, from the get-go, you can see that in one way, HuntStand is very whitetail centric, and I believe they're based out of South Carolina, so they're whereas GoHunt is out of Nevada, BaseMap is out of Washington. HuntStand is from an eastern state, so they're very whitetail centric. If here, as you can see on the top, I can print a high resolution printed map, which I really think that's a neat feature. I can jump to 3D, and I really do like the 3D features here. Lots of very strong detail. This is definitely something I could use for e-scouting in the West. It's and it's very easy to navigate in this capacity. Like I said, I do find some of the tools and layers a little overwhelming, or at least the tools overwhelming. But they have a lot of them, and if you spent an inordinate amount of time playing around with it, I think you get a lot of value out of this. So we see the waypoint markers. We can draw lines and shapes. We can select certain features. We can modify those features. We have a location tool for elevation and the longitude, latitude. I won't spend a lot of time on these tools. What I will do is pivot to these layers, which I'm really pleased with. Hunt Map might be whitetail centric. We just saw GoHunt that was Western centric, but HuntStand has satellite imagery, hybrid, property info, hunting lands, public lands, monthly satellite. How about that? That's really interesting to me. Monthly satellite. You see, this was July of 2022. So, and then I can adjust that accordingly. Let's see how well this works. There we go. So, monthly satellite is something that's really unique. That is, I mean, it goes back to 2017. That is a really unique layer, and that is something that I think I could use in a lot of different capacities. If I'm looking for, if I'm hunting out west, and I'm looking for September of other previous years, I'm looking for wallows or consistent meadows, or if I'm looking for, when do things, when do the leaves start to change in an eastern state that I might be traveling to. Oak trees tend to change color, later in October. If I'm looking for an oak flat, this might be a really helpful tool, as I can go month by month by month. So this is really significant. I can tell you now, I don't think any other platform, I'm confident that any other platform doesn't really offer this. So we see contours, terrain, streets, shaded relief, USGS terrain. Here's another topographic map. Really, really impressed with the variety of layers here, and they're all very applicable to me, no matter what state I'm in. So let's take a look at some of the other. We'll pivot from this area, and let's actually let's see if I can get back to the satellite image here that we're used to. Very good. And we can drop trail camera waypoints. In fact, we'll do that right now. And then we can even put orientation here. It's facing the northeast. We can put the name and model. And so we get very specific. And something that is interesting with HuntStand also is that you can gather data as it relates to your harvest, sightings, and I believe that also it allows that for your trail camera. And so you can see this by the data here as I toggle between sightings and harvest. Harvest by time, harvest by moon phase, moon illumination, temperature range, distance from feeder, wind direction. It's really the unfortunate thing is that I wasn't able to figure out how to use this, but I think it has real potential and real opportunity, especially as if I was using this out west, or if I was using this out east. Now I want to get out of this, and we're going to get back to this main mapping area, and here we go. And if you look at the waypoints that you can drop here, again, we see, I want to mess around with this a bit. So we can see we change color, name, description. You can even add a YouTube video to your waypoint, which I thought was really interesting. So we could spend more time on HuntStand. I'm not going to belabor the point, but the one thing that I did want to point out, and that I feel like it was a real downfall with this platform, was that, and as you can see, it is very whitetail centric. So as we look at hunting lands, it doesn't, in my experience, it wasn't giving me specifics as it relates to units and zones. And so you see a very generic. So if you click here, you can see herd unit 104, it's resident deer. So you can find that, and you can save this information to your hunt area. But I feel like there's an opportunity there with this to allow you to toggle with it before you get to this point, so that I can see all of the zones at once. If I can go here, hunting lands, and click a drop down for, I want to see all the elk units instead of me having to bounce around and see, oh, this is hunt area 80 for elk, or it's 155 for deer. I just felt like that was a little difficult if I'm planning on going to a western hunt. So I dinged this platform a little bit for that. But as you can see, it does allow you to do a lot of things either in the east or the west. I will say you can see it is very eastern centric with, you know, bait piles and feeders and minerals and traps, those sorts of things, or you know, buck scrape, buck shed. I don't see I don't see wallow, for example. But you know, it is from a pricing standpoint, HuntStand is $29.99. They do offer a 7-day free trial. The It does have it's called tracing. It does offer tracking, but it's called tracing. To me, there was no ability to import waypoints. I could not find that feature on its YouTube channel. I could not, where they might describe how to do it, and I could not as I played around with this. So, little disappointed with that. I gave the 3D rating a 9 because of the detail and the tilt. I was very pleased with that. The layer rating, I gave a solid 8 because it has so many different layers that I think could help an eastern and western hunter. Although it didn't have the units and zones the way I liked it, it does have that information. So I'll give it that. It the monthly satellite imagery, I think, is just really phenomenal. That I think that's something that can really benefit a lot of different hunters. So I gave that a solid 8. The waypoint variety, I did ding it there. I didn't see a whole lot of western game related waypoints, so I gave it a 5. The topo rating, I gave a 10 because you do have a variety of USGS topo, terrain, outdoor, natural, atlas. And then the tool rating, you don't see it. We didn't go through all of the different tools, but you do have moon phase, overhead, underfoot, peak game activity. You have precipitation, monitor, the hunt zone tool, which has an emphasis on the wind. In fact, we'll pull that up right now. Let's see here. We're going to go 500 yards. We're going to place that marker. And then you can see here, if I were hunting this area, it gives me the 500-yard radius. And then that red area is my scent cone. So I gave the tools a rating of 7 because I thought they had a really nice set of tools. The value for $29.99, I rated at an 8 as well. So very solid with HuntStand, very impressed, a very solid platform. Let's move on to HuntWise. HuntWise, as you can see, has a I really do like the layout here. I felt like it was a little bit better than HuntStand because it's a very clean platform. So here on HuntWise, they have a thing called HuntCast. And you can choose your game and you can choose your location. So I'm going to allow it to look at my current location. It shows my scent drift. It shows sort of some deer movement or deer hunt predictions. Wednesday, there's a thunderstorm coming through, so it looks like that's a good day to hunt if that was a legal day to hunt for me. And you can toggle this between different times. And you can choose from different game. And so it has turkey and bear and mule deer and elk and moose. I think what would be interesting to know is if, what are the inputs for the different game? Because this is a platform out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And to me, it seems like it's a little bit whitetail centric. But we'll continue to look at the tools, and you can determine that for yourself. So we're gonna. So here we are. Let's see. We're back at. I believe we're still at Jenny Lake here in Wyoming. Yeah. So we're gonna go into the 3D mode, and you can immediately see the detail here. Whoops, that's not what we want to do. Here we go. And so really strong detail with the 3D mapping, and very easy to toggle in and toggle out. We can, I'm going to zoom out here, and this is sort of, again, a hunt area. This is something that HuntWise will allow you to set up. If I wanted to add a pin, it allows me to name it, and then I can pick blinds and stands. I can do sort of a general one, food plants, land management, animal sign, tracking, property, water, transportation, and then it has quite a few different species here of elk, moose, bear, turkey, deer. We can add shapes and paths, which we will not mess around with. We can do property lines, which is obviously important. And then I think we looked at HuntCast. There's a gear feed that that you can access. Here you can see, here is sort of a news feed from different, it looks like social media. Here's the gear feed. This is sort of an extra thing where you can get discounts off of different types of gear. Again, we're not really going to dive into that dynamic. It's sort of an extra, but at the core of our evaluation, we're not looking at those things. Let's look at map layers. I was really impressed with HuntWise, because you have your property line information, your motor vehicle use, and then similar to GoHunt, you have a breakdown of different types of vehicles here. And whoops, let's go back here. There we go. I'm having some difficulty toggling here. And so, there we go. So we've got land ownership, places of interest, roads and trails, which we looked at. We have areas, land that's for sale, which I thought was a nice touch. We have wildfires and timber cuts, and these go back to different ranges of years. You have a drought area, drought monitor, cell phone coverage. So a really impressive set of layers. And then if we get into the western states, we'll look at Colorado. You see tools for elk scouting. Whoops. Let's do that again. Sorry about that. Elk scouting, GMUs, walk-in access, boat ramps. And then if we go to, let's use Florida again as an example, GMUs, wildlife management areas, boat ramps. So it's got a lot of great layers. You can favorite them. You can find the ones that are active. You can see here the ones that I have active. Very good set. You can import the waypoints from other applications, and you can also they also have their tutorials, which we will not go into, but it'll really helps you understand some of the tools. Overall, I was really impressed with HuntWise. I think HuntWise, to me, has an incredible balance with its mapping capability, its waypoints. It has the HuntCast, whether you use that or not. Weather is still important, that weather dynamic. So maybe it doesn't necessarily predict. Maybe I'm not into the whole prediction thing, but I can see what the weather forecast. I can see a lot of other aspects of weather. Yeah, here we go. Moon events, barometric pressure, those sorts of things that that I can use. Regardless of the predictive nature. I'm not a fan of those, movement predictors for different game, but definitely the weather is important. So, HuntWise, 7 day free trial. It's $59.99. It does have the public-private, as we saw, with private owner phone lookup. You can look; it'll help you look up their phone number. I thought that was really interesting. It does have tracking, which they call walking path. I gave a 9 for the 3D level of detail on the desktop. And it has a full tilt. From a layers note, I gave it a 9. I thought it has just a really strong level of layers, and it does have the specific hunt zones and units that I'm looking for when I want to look at my map, as compared to the dynamic that we saw with HuntStand, where you have to click on an area point of land to figure out what area it is. Here, you just have to pull up that layer within that particular state. And so I like that dynamic, and I think that that's something that HuntStand should really consider doing if they want to sort of accommodate or make their application more versatile. So again, I gave the layers a 9. I gave the topo mapping a 10 because it has different types of topo mapping. I gave the tools a 7 because it has a different enough variability in the tools. It even has state-specific hunting license and reg links in the phone app. It does have other major and minor factors for game movement that you can manipulate, the timing of the rut, the temperature, the wind, the moon, barometric pressure. From a value standpoint, I gave it an 8 because I felt like it does give you a lot of tools, even at $59.99 price point. It gives you a lot of tools and a lot of versatility that you could use this as your one app and not have to purchase another app for hunting west and hunting east. So overall, very impressed with the HuntWise app. It surprised me. It was one of those apps that I didn't expect a whole lot out of. It was a late addition to this evaluation. Lastly, we're going to take a look at OnX. And OnX is it does offer a 7-day free trial. It's $99 for 50 states. And over the past few years, OnX has added different extras to try to add value to the platform, but not lower their price to compete with the likes of a HuntWise or a HuntStand, or even a BaseMap. So this is I think a platform that a lot of you all probably have used or are using, and we'll spend a little bit of time. Some of the tools you're very familiar with. We can draw a line, we can draw shapes, we have waypoints, we can add photos. This is a tool that I think is interesting, the wind calendar or the weather calendar. You can see the wind for each day, and you can actually add this wind feature to a waypoint on your mobile app. I don't believe that we can do it here, but if I drop a pin, you can see I can choose from a variety of options, and then I can change the color. And in fact, we're going to, if I just click on an area, not dropping a waypoint, I can then add a range radius, which we talked about earlier with the BaseMap tool, where we can put a radius of maybe 1 mile around a parking lot or a trailhead, and we now have decided we're not going to waste any time maybe hunting these areas, because that's where a lot of the pressure comes from. I can also look at the weather when I drop this point there and sort of see what's going on from a sunset, sunrise standpoint, and precipitation and barometric pressure and predominant wind. So nice tool there. I can open a live map, and what that does is it allows me and my buddy who lives in Ohio to do e-scouting together, and we can share the same screen and talk about a particular area that we want to zoom into. And like, oh, okay, I really like this. Where do you think you want to hunt? So I think that that's really nice. Something that OnX has begun to really start doing is satellite imagery on demand. This is sort of in test phase. I was able to do it I've downloaded my first area, and it's a neat tool, and I think as if OnX rolls it out, that it'll be really something that would be really a nice differentiator. We'll see, to be determined. So as you can see the detail in the 2D. If I want to switch to 3D, I'll go here. Before I do so, we can see it toggles between satellite, hybrid, and then topo. This is the only layer of topo, and again, as you all know, this sort of irritates me that there's only one layer. It does allow me to see saddles and other terrain features that I'm looking for that are important to me, but that's sort of it. So if I go to satellite and I go to 3D map, I can see here the detail with which I can get with OnX on the 3D level. It's very nice, and I rated it, very high as a result of the detail. So as I switch out of 2D or out of 3D back to 2D, you can see over here that OnX has folders that you can create for your different types of hunts, and which is a nice way to keep things organized. And as we go to the layers, you can see we have land and access, quite a few different layers. And what I will say is OnX is the king of layers as it relates to, you can see acorn producing oaks, thermal cover, wetland, crop distribution, coniferous trees, historic wildfires, timber cuts. I mean, it's just an incredible amount of layers, roadless areas, trail slope, trails, forest visitor maps. It just goes on and on and on. And so they really have done an incredible job with creating a lot of different opportunities to play with layers. So we won't spend a lot of time here. You can see it does have the things that you would want and expect from private land, government lands, walk-in access, and so forth. So going into sort of some of the ratings with OnX, I did give it a, let's see, it looks like a 9 out of the 3D. And it does have a limited tilt when you mess with it on the phone. Some of the apps have a full tilt. It does have a limited tilt on the phone, which you will see on the layer rating. I gave it a 9 because of all of the availability, the variety of different layers. The waypoint variety, I also gave it a 9. We didn't spend a lot of time exploring that, but you can see that there's all different types of species, 24 different types of game. It has cabins, hiker, parking, roost tree, water source, trap. From the standpoint of topo, I gave OnX a 6 because, again, it has the basic topo and hybrid mode, which is disappointing to me. From the tool standpoint, which are some of these things along the right-hand side, I rated OnX a 7. And then from a value standpoint, I rated OnX a 6 because, again, you're spending $99. You're getting a lot of the same baseline tools and layers that you can get for much less expensive with one of the other different platforms. So that concludes the desktop evaluation of the various platforms, and in the next video we will look at the handheld iterations and evaluate them and give pros and cons and scoring there, and then I'll give my final thoughts on each of these platforms and a final score for each of these platforms. Appreciate you all sticking with me on this.